industries come together, put together certain reports or handbooks as we call them, which is related to governance and related to on what stage as a startup you are. You should please go refer up, whether you can look at the Startup India website or you can look at the IDCA website. There's a handbook for where you can figure out what to do. And similarly, you know, thank you. As you mentioned, the number of fund managers in this country are growing, and the fund managers who are registered in India are called AIFs. So just to give you a number, the SEBI registered AIFs, and SEBI as a regulator registers them. About 3 years ago, the number of registered AIFs were about 340. Today, this number is running up to 1,300. So you have many and more fund managers in the country who are coming down from experience, and some of them being unicorns who are setting up shops as investors. Now, having said that, I've got to give Vishesh an opportunity. Vishesh, maybe I'm going to shoot 2 questions to you. You know, you built a fantastic startup on logistics, right? So, how did you think about this? You know, we all were discussing there are multiple issues in this country. But how do you think about going about building this? As well as where do you think there was a discussion on Make in India and Think Global? Some of your thoughts on that. That's probably one on your startup. And secondly, your journey about raising funds.
Sure. So I'll take the first one. In terms of how we got to shipping or logistics as our primary model, actually it was a journey. We incorporated in 2012. I think what we locked on was what segment are we building for? Was SMEs and MSMEs of the country, because that's what we understood. We all come from same family background. We've seen our fathers, we spend time with our family businesses. So one thing was clear, this segment is where to be built for. That was out of the way. Now is was the time to figure out the problem. Right? And 2012-13, e-commerce was the thing which was taking off. Flipkart was new, just raised capital, Snapdeal. There was the whole new e-commerce wave which was arriving, and we kind of identified by ourselves the SMEs and MSMEs have to go online. It is an opportunity, and there is an easier way of doing that. The first product we launched was CartRocket. It was a shopping cart builder platform, website builder platform. From there, once we got to know our customers, we onboarded a couple of customers. Now we have a direct relationship with my customers as SMEs. Now they started sharing problems. What am I facing? Fine, I have a website, I don't get any orders. Marketing. I have orders, I don't have any shipping, logistics. I have orders, but I need online payment, online payment. So it was a journey we figured out with our customers in terms of whatever they came back to us with a problem. We decided we are going to use tech to solve it and optimize it, and that's how logistics was part of one of the problems we were solving. And in 2018-19, it just seemed very obvious that that is one problem which is bigger than the other.
And just to share some numbers with you, because you said 10 years, right? That's what it's taken. And it's not an easy journey. Startup journey is never easy. But sometimes, please also understand the guys who are raising money for you, it's a very difficult journey for them also, because it's somebody else's money, right? And that's the man who's giving the money. That's the man who is responsible to give profits back to him. And you're the one who's supposed to deliver it. And 10 years, so just tell us your journey in terms of investments, in terms of revenues for the audience.
So at least I think we have been lucky there, a little bit smarter in terms of how we made sure the investment of our investors was nice. So at every stage of investment, there's always a mixture of one exit, primary, secondary exit. So in our journey, I think today, where we stand today, I think pre-Series B, all of our investors have taken booked their profits and exited the company. And then Series B onward, their journey is still ongoing. So we've been a little bit careful there, so it's important to return the money back, and that's all. Coming from our family business background, it's ingrained in us. So yeah, it's always a hard model.
Fantastic. And I think that probably gets to another point. We're saying, and we're discussing it, maybe Manu, we want to just put across. What are your expectations from them in terms of, he said 2 things which you said very nicely, right? About, delivering the money back, and in terms of, your relationship as well with the investors. But what more as an investor are you looking at from the startup?
So first we spend a lot of time before making investment in terms of getting to know the founder. We talked about ethics, we talked about values. I think it's a very important thing that both investors and founders find that match, because We want to be able to hang out with them, be in a room, talk to them, engage with them, and have mutual respect. Hear their perspective, and hopefully they see value in ours. So I think we expect that relationship will continue as future unfolds. The second thing is we invest in businesses and founders that intimately understand problems. Like, Vishesh just described how intimately he understood the problem of logistics, because we've all faced many of the problems that founders are today solving in our lives, right? Our expectation from founders is to continue to understand these problems more deeply, continue to listen to the customer. It's okay to start with a vision of 5-10 year journey, but the reality often is different. So, you keep listening to your customer, keep improving what you're building, keep reshaping it. The expectation we have specifically from our founders is that you build a business that can stand the test of time, right? If you look through our portfolio, you find that, later on, folks here will hear from Himanshu, who's the founder of Procap. I said this when I first met Himanshu and Pallavi when they were building the business, and I say it on this forum again today that, Procap's going to be one of the top fintechs of this country. Top 5, most likely one of the top 3 fintechs in time to come. And how did we know that? Just because they had a very clear vision, they had a very robust business model. They're not founders that were interested in taking on a lot of capital and spending a lot of capital in the hope of finding a business model. Like, look at Shiprocket, how it's been built. It's a real problem, real solution, very robust operating business model. So our expectation is if you build a very valuable business, you will win and we will make money as an investor. If you are in the hope of discovering a business model or hope of discovering how you make your economics work, then we're not the investors for you. Even though we are VC, we act as patient capital. We're okay, and again, I put my money where my mouth is, right? So if you look at our portfolio, a lot of the frontier tech bets we've taken are businesses that you will see high valuations in 2, 3, 4 years. There are investments you can flip soon. Sometimes you have to wait 7, 8, 10 years. And we're okay, because the founder's passion is going to drive that out.
Vivek, I heard about customer, right? Literally, it was all about customer here. Your expectations on your investments.
So, as a family office, we look at investments in a slightly different way. A lot of it probably is similar to what Manu just mentioned. But one additional angle that we sort of try to also look at it with, in today's world, right? Capital is a commodity for a well-run business. And if you've got your business matrix right, there'll be enough and more capital chasing you. So at that point in time, what is it that I can bring to the table which differentiates me from just a provider of capital? Is there anything else that I can give to you that deepens the relationship more than just writing a check? And that's where a lot of differentiated offerings in terms of, can I give you the market connect, can I act as a mentor, can I connect you to the suppliers of my business? What is it that I bring to the table apart from just writing that check? Again, comes in as a very useful filtering criteria for us. Because I don't just want to chase businesses for the sake of being only a financial investor. And I want to chase businesses because I can bring something else to the table which is of value to them.
And then, rightly said, you put in your money where your passion is, where you think you can drive it. What is your expectation from it? From a startup, where you put your money in?
So I think even from a startup, right, the expectation is, and again,
I'll give you a hint. I'm looking at reporting, transparency, some of those dirty words.
So those are obviously hygiene checks. But if I were to slightly give you a different answer, which we actually tell a lot of our startups is, keep the passion to follow the dream. A lot of businesses are born or startups are born when someone has a dream. Along the way, once you raise funding, that dream changes. That dream changes to, can I increase revenues, can I make my investors happy, rather than the initial problem you started with. So can you keep the faith to chase your dream? Yes, there will be ups and downs on the way. But if you keep the faith, more often than not, you'll ultimately make it.
So, you also said that your love is for deep tech, right?
Not particularly for us. I think deep tech as a passion area is,
Okay. So it still continues to be a passion. I think maybe, why don't you, in the interest of time as well, some of you talk about some of the sunrise sectors where you think it's worth investing. Because I'm very passionate about deep tech as well. We're trying to build across, saying why should our startups sit out of the valley for lack of investments in this own country?
Yeah.
So I mean, again,
Oh, so deep tech most definitely, because problems in India remain age old. I mean, they are not new problems, but way we solve them is coming up in a very new way, right? So ShipRocket has solved the logistics problem by thinking about it differently, which is essentially what deep tech is, right? How do I solve age old problems thinking differently? So that definitely is an area where I think it's upcoming. I think everything related to the environment. I mean, this might sound like being repeated 100 times, but I can't stress on this enough that we look at every startup of ours and say that if this company succeeds, does this make the world a better place or not? So at the base level, are you trying to make a difference, environment related? Also within the Indian context, education. There was a mention about the education sector, and we in India were used to having our top institutions only in 8-10 cities, but the demand for that is now much beyond that. So how do you bridge that gap? Fourth is obviously on the finance side. We've always had this demand for financial services, but access has been very limited. So how can you then take this from India to Bharat is again where we see the big opportunity.
Well, your comments, when I see manufacturing is literally spelled halfway, MANU. So,
Manufacturing is of keen interest to us. Obviously, it's actually taking off finally in India. So all businesses on the peripheral side of manufacturing. You asked about deep tech. We're very actively looking at semiconductor as a space. I think it's an inflection moment for the country, for the world. Are there businesses that are investable for VCs in that space? Right? We're looking at, so 3 years ago, all decks had what we used to call Malai, machine learning and artificial intelligence. Right?
Yes.
Now every deck we see has generative AI built into it. But we're actually looking very actively on application of generative AI on businesses and on use cases specifically. Right? And how can we use the New York Tech as a platform to solve other problems? We're looking at life sciences and genomics, right? So I think if you look at the problems the world faces, from health to food security to disease management, the solution of almost all those problems lies in genomics, right? So the application engineering on biology is unleashing some very exciting opportunities. We're actively looking at those. And then besides that, we always have an active thesis. We keep looking at sectors where we think the ecosystem is ripe for innovation and for germination of new ideas. And Space Tech, we started investing in 2018 for that reason. We felt that Space Tech in India was ready for disruption. We will see a lot of private enterprise happen. Today, I was very encouraged to hear Professor Sood's comments around quantum computing as an example, right? So, if the government starts to build some infrastructure, I'm sure that it's going to be a lot of innovation.
Absolutely. I mean, is there any reason why you stay away from defense?
So one, I think there are often restrictions put by LPs on which sectors you can go to, and also globally, I think defense is one area. Working with the government is one area that founders struggle with. I think experienced companies, experienced founders also have challenges with that. So we like to invest in businesses where early on dependence on government is low, because it's a different ecosystem to navigate.
Which is suddenly only over there. Agriculture comes to my mind. If you have any comments on that, agriculture is sunrise sector, and probably if you're reaching across to the last miles, is there any input which you can give on that one?
So yes, one, agriculture. I think starting with the first question, manufacturing, this country is absolutely ready on the brink of completely whatever's going to happen next will be built on the basis of manufacturing, and we have the opportunity to see. On agriculture, I think my first investment actually incidentally was in a ethanol manufacturing space. Again, coming from a startup back there. It's again when I went there, I understood a lot about the agriculture space in terms of how government is so actively pursuing the growth of that sector and putting together all kinds of initiatives, which are actually not just initiatives in like paper initiatives, they're actually happening on ground. You can see the impact of it. That's one definitely. The other sector I personally believe very heavily on is fintech. I think we as a country will be built on back of healthy credit and the more availability, then it has to change now. the access of credit and the cost of that has to get better at some point, because that is going to also act as one of the other backbones of the growth in the sector.
Fabulous. So on that front, I mean, even Asta talked about, so that, money coming in. There is fund of fund structures which I think the Honorable Finance Minister had announced some called some blended financing. So hopefully we will see some government support also coming in place. As you build up the startups, you scale up. The skill gap, is there a skill gap? You want to comment?
There was, let's be honest about it. There was a time when there was skill gap. Then we relied on outsourcing freelancers across the country. We crossed that bridge, then there was a gap of availability. Then we reached to a stage where there was enough availability, but there were people with good skills available, but not enough. And now we are at a stage, I think we are in a balanced state where after the cycles of all these various fundings and, as we call them, up cycles, there was a lot of talent generated, a lot of people came back to the country with the opportunity. So there was a lot of talent now available, which is on the balance today. There is no skill gap as we see it. We are a 2,000 people company with 800 plus engineers. I think we have not seen that now.
One in terms of growing investments and helping your startups to scale, anything on skill, you want to comment in anything which you feel some of our startups should focus on?
I think Vishesh made a great point that some 9 months ago we written to our, maybe 12 months ago, in our quarterly update that, while everybody was super excited about these upcycles, our worry was that it will disrupt innovation. Because where does innovation come from? The next layer of management from Vishesh and Shiprocket is going to step away at some point and create the next set of investments. And what we've seen in the upcycle is that a lot of bad companies, bad businesses that had no business of being in business were hoarding talent and making it hard for good companies to be able to attract talent. And I think that's gotten ghostwrited. I think there is a fundamental issue in India, which I think folks like you, Rajat, are doing a fabulous job representing the government, where we need to do a better job at skilling people and giving them the right information while they're going through schooling and education, making them more employable. And I think that's a more national level project. But I think today, like Vishesh said, we are also hearing from our portfolio companies that things seem a little bit in balance, which is good. It's going to help build for next 2 years, but then again, they'll go out of balance.
I think in the interest of time also we've got to put this one to rest. But last one, Shah, in terms of your opinion on diversity and what are you doing to support diversity with your fund managers and with startups?
So the way we look at it is, how are we
Quick, please.
Yeah.
I've been asked to.
just a very quick answer, have a right mix of the different sectors, different people, different communities that you're trying to support, right? So we will, in our fund structure, we will have a few funds that we want to support who are only doing climate, a few funds that we are trying to support who are only doing something different. Similar kind of mix we look in our founders as well, in our direct investment, saying that, is there something where, we are trying to support women empowerment? What are we doing there? What are we doing for financial inclusion? What are we doing for climate sustainability? That's how we look at it.
Something you want to comment or that's all?
On challenge, one other last comment I'd make is that, we in India we have very stereotype of looking at what talent means, right? So for VCs it means IIT IIM is the starting point, right? If you look through again our portfolio of 17 companies, you can assume 2 founders each, 35 founders, only 1 founder is IIT IIM. So I encourage founders also to push the boundary on what good talent means. It doesn't necessarily mean which college or engineering school or kindergarten you've come from. Find different ways of testing for talent, measuring talent, giving people a chance and opportunity, and that's surprising.
Great. Okay, please go ahead. I can't say no. I think we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
So, thank you for a good session. And, I heard a lot about deep tech, defense, and all the segments. The one thing that Mr. Ajit Chaudhary said, and I haven't heard, is robotics, because that's where we start talking about a mix of hardware, software, productization, that's going to merge. And I haven't heard anything about investments in that sector. So, please.
So we've invested in a company called Cynler, CYMLR. You should check that out. We believe it's one of the world's leading robotics company. It's solving supreme recognition. It's building an integrated computer vision with a robotic arm. Probably one of India's frontier deep tech companies. So there is keen interest. There is focus there. You're absolutely right. It's going to see adoption. So we're looking at it actively.
And we have cases where robotics are being looked at as toys, and we have more issues.
We have few cases because of the network of warehouses we run. We have kind of incubated a lot of these early. I know remember a bunch kids, very young, 19-year-old kids who wanted to test out their solutions in our warehouses, and we incubated a lot of those in terms of with investment / access to my warehouses. Come do any experiment that you'd like to do. It's open completely.
Thank you. I think the next thing in robotics will be robotic sports. So watch out that space and hope to see you.
Yeah, my question is to Mr. Manu. Now we have this national deep tech startup policy. We have all this quantum computing, cellular technologies, blockchain. Do you think startups can afford the infrastructure required for the deep technologies? These kind of technologies. Though the name is National Deep Tech Policy. But do the startups can afford this kind of thing? Or they don't have this service for the IITs, or the collaboration, or something like that.
So is your question, can we startups afford to build their own infrastructure or leverage government's infrastructure?
No, can they afford the infrastructure which is required for quantum computing, semiconductor technology?
No, they can't. No, they can't.
So the name of the startup is the deep tech startup policy. So what the infrastructure going to depend on IITs or MITs or some national entities? Do you agree that?
Yes, and that's why I said, from time to time, we look at sectors which are ripe for innovation where infrastructure is being built. What we've seen in space tech now is the work of ISRO for the last 40 years. Right? It's not just labs, it's also talent that's needed, it's also experience and expertise that's needed. It's great to see young talent going and innovating, but they need someone's wisdom, someone's experience that can help and guide them. So there are sectors where that's happened, and you're seeing some extraordinary outcomes there. There are other sectors that are building up, and that's why folks like Rajat are doing a fabulous job representing what the startup community needs in form of infrastructure from the government.
So we had a discussion on, I'm part of the, I was a participant in one of the quantum computing group, right? And the entire discussion was around, this ecosystem cannot support it. This can only provide ideas where you can help out. And folks like DST and all are working on it. But then there are billions and billions of dollars which are required. And specifically it's coming out in areas for defense where we need this. So hopefully, there will be a mix, a jugalbandi between somewhere the innovators as well as the money providers where government will have to intervene.
I have a question for you also. This may come from a different background. Okay. Western world, particularly US, Europe, they make a technology and look for a market globally. This is called technology driven markets. India's otherwise. India's market driven technologies. The more at the defense, aerospace, space, these are market driven technologies.
Yeah.
These are India's market. What is happening in the Western world, but in the US, it doesn't happen in India. You agree with that?
So I think Manu kind of clarified one. If you really see money coming into this asset class or our startups, 90% is all international money. And the international LP does not want to invest in defense. That leaves us to the 10%, the Indian family offices and investors who have to step up. Right? At the end of the day, you have the big boys like the Tatas and the Mahindras who have capabilities. They have, if they're supported with more incubation setups and incubating more startups with this, I'm sure, we will be making in India and probably making it for the world, for our 5 trillion, whatever we can reach. I think you have to stop there, please.
Yes.
I just wanted to
I'm
ask
happy to be here for a couple of more minutes, but I think
the last one, the 3D printing technology. I saw a kid who was making this, 3D printing machine. So in the startup space, what is the status?
So, on 3D printing, you want to
Because when you're talking about hardware, so like 3Ds, I think there are not many people. And I saw a kid, 9-year-old, he's developing the 3D printing machine. Thank you.
It's there. I mean, it's reality, and it's there. It's
We have people who are in there.
in the 3D printing space. I think almost all they're using it. Yeah? It's
No,
like
not
saying
using. I said
it's-
there's the other people like what today Mr. Chaudhary said in the hardware, rather than manufacturers from India.
I think that's where we're lacking,
Yes.
and where you're looking at this particular group to help in manufacturing, which they are usually 7-year, 8-year, 9-year time period, right? So that's where the investments are for them. Manufacturing is a little bit long term, and certainly I think that if the products are being made, I mean today let's talk about how many. I mean I was surprised when Ashta said there is. I said give me a statistics around how many startups who are into manufacturing. Deep tech, she said, probably out of the 100,000 startups, 10,000 startups हैं उसमें. Manufacturing में कितने हैं? I think we have to help this ecosystem on manufacturing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. I would request Nikhil sir